A young nurse donates blood to a stranger unaware. He's a millionaire single dad who will soon. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. It was a chilly evening in late fall, the kind of evening where the wind seemed to pierce right through the skin. Emily, a young nurse working the night shift at St. Michael's Hospital, had just finished her long hours of caring for patients. She was exhausted, but her shift wasn't quite over yet. As she walked toward the staff exit, her phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, Lisa. Emily, don't forget you're supposed to donate blood tonight. You promised. Emily had almost forgotten about it, but she knew it was a good cause, so she shrugged off her fatigue and headed to the blood donation center. When she arrived, there were only a few people in line. She signed in, took a seat, and waited her turn. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sound of nurses moving around. Emily wasn't sure what to expect, but she'd heard that donating blood could be a way to help save lives, and that was enough motivation for her. A nurse called her name, and she stood up, making her way to the donation chair. She wasn't nervous, she had done this before, but there was a certain unease in the air that night. As she sat down, she noticed the man next to her. He was tall, with dark hair and a rugged, handsome face. His clothes were a little too polished for someone just donating blood, and his expression was distant, as if lost in thought. He caught Emily's gaze and offered a brief smile. "First time donating?" he asked. Emily nodded. "Yeah, just trying to do my part. It's not much, but every little bit helps, right?" "Right," he said, his voice warm but with a hint of sadness in it. He seemed like someone who had seen his share of hardships, yet there was something calm about him, like he had a quiet strength that came from experience. Emily had no idea who he was, but the way he carried himself made her curious. After a few minutes, the nurse came over and started the donation process. Emily's attention drifted, but she couldn't help but notice the man again. He was watching her closely, but not in an intrusive way. It was almost as if he was observing her with a gentle interest. "You know," the man said after a moment, "you're a lot braver than I am. I've never been able to donate blood. Always feel like I can't handle it." Emily gave him a reassuring smile. "You don't have to be brave. It's not that bad. You just sit back, relax, and let them do their thing." The man chuckled, nodding in agreement. As Emily finished her donation and stood to leave, the man gave her a nod of approval. "Good for you," he said softly. "You're doing something good." Emily smiled back, feeling a little lighter, but she had no idea how much that brief interaction would change her life. What she didn't know was that the man she had just met was not just any stranger. He was David Carter, a wealthy single father, who had been testing her kindness without revealing his true identity. And what Emily would soon discover was that her small act of kindness was about to lead her into a world she never imagined. Emily walked out of the blood donation center, feeling a sense of accomplishment despite the exhaustion from her long shift. The cold evening air hit her face, but it was a welcome relief after the sterile, quiet room inside. She pulled her coat tighter around her as she made her way down the sidewalk. Her mind wandered back to the man she had briefly spoken to while donating blood. She couldn't shake the image of him the way he had spoken to her, the faint sadness in his eyes. He was clearly someone who had been through a lot, yet there was something dignified about the way he carried himself. Little did she know, the brief interaction would leave an impression on her. The next few days passed in a blur of hospital shifts and routine errands, but Emily couldn't stop thinking about that encounter. She'd helped countless patients over the years, but this stranger was different. He'd seemed real, grounded. She pushed the thought to the back of her mind, focusing on her work. It wasn't until a week later that her life would begin to take a turn. One evening, after finishing her shift at the hospital, Emily was just about to head home when she got an unexpected call. It was from a private number, which made her hesitant at first, but something told her to answer. "Hello, is this Emily?" a deep voice asked on the other end of the line. "Yes, this is she." This is David Carter. We met briefly at the blood donation center last week. I hope you remember me," the voice continued. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She instantly recognized the name. David Carter. She hadn't realized it at the time, but the man she had spoken to was none other than the CEO of Carter Enterprises, one of the most successful tech companies in the city. "Of course, I remember," Emily replied, trying to sound casual, though she was anything but. "I just wanted to thank you again for your generosity. You might not realize it, but what you did was incredibly kind. I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to offer you something in return," David said. Emily blinked in surprise. "What do you mean? I know this may sound strange, but I would like to help you. I'm involved with a charitable organization, and I believe you would be a perfect fit to work with us. I'd like to offer you a position, and I can also assist with any financial difficulties you might be facing. You don't have to decide now, but I wanted to extend the offer." Emily was taken aback. She hadn't expected this, not from a stranger, especially not from someone as high profile as David Carter. She hesitated for a moment. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like that," she replied. "I'm just a nurse, and I've never really been involved with charity work before." David's voice softened, a hint of understanding in it. "Emily, what you did at the blood donation center showed me that you have a heart for helping others. That's what matters most. You don't need any special qualifications, just a willingness to make a difference." Emily felt her resolve beginning to waver. She was used to working hard, never asking for help, but this was different. She couldn't ignore the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'll think about it." Over the next few days, Emily found herself in a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. She had always been independent, struggling to make ends meet, but this offer from David was unlike anything she'd ever imagined. She had always dreamed of doing more with her life, of making a real difference, but could she accept help from someone like David Carter? Was she really the right person for the job? Emily couldn't get the thought out of her mind, and by the end of the week, she found herself back at the same blood donation center, waiting to donate again. It had been a strange coincidence, but as she stood there, she couldn't help but wonder if it was fate. Maybe she was meant to meet David, meant to accept his offer. As she sat in the chair again, ready to donate, Emily's thoughts were interrupted when she heard a familiar voice. "It's good to see you again," David said, stepping into the center. Emily looked up, surprised to see him there. "David, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice filled with curiosity. "I came to check on you," he replied with a smile. "I wanted to see how you were doing, and I thought I might be able to help in a more personal way." Emily wasn't sure what he meant, but the moment their eyes met, she could feel the connection between them. There was something about him, something she hadn't noticed before, something that made her trust him in a way she couldn't explain. As she finished donating, David offered to take her out for a coffee, and despite her hesitation, she agreed. As they sat down together, she found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't expected. It felt natural, comfortable, like they had known each other for years. Emily was still unsure about the offer he had made, but as the conversation flowed, she couldn't deny that there was something compelling about David, something that made her believe he was genuinely trying to help. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a life-changing journey that would soon reveal David's true identity and the kind of man he really was. Emily woke up the next morning feeling a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. The coffee with David had gone well the previous night. He had listened intently as she shared her struggles, her dreams, and her fears. They had talked about everything from her career as a nurse to her long-term goals. There was an undeniable chemistry between them, something that Emily couldn't quite put into words. For the first time in a long while, she felt heard, understood. But the question still lingered, should she accept his offer? She had always been independent, never willing to ask for help. Could she really accept something from a man like David Carter, a man who had the world at his feet? As Emily got ready for her shift at the hospital, her mind kept drifting back to their conversation. She had been offered an opportunity that most people would dream of, working with David's charitable foundation, helping those in need. It was an offer that seemed almost too good to be true, and the doubts began to creep in. Was she qualified? Would she be good enough? She had always worked in healthcare, caring for the sick and the elderly. But this was different. It felt like a chance to make a real impact, something bigger than herself. At the hospital, her day started like any other. She was in the middle of her rounds when her phone buzzed with a message. It was from David. "Hey Emily, I've been thinking about you. I know you have a lot to consider, but I just wanted to remind you that the offer still stands. No pressure at all, just know that you're appreciated." Emily felt a lump in her throat. He had been nothing but kind to her, but this was more than just a job offer. It was a lifeline. As the day wore on, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point in her life. That evening, when her shift ended, Emily decided to take a walk through the city to clear her head. The cold air was refreshing, and the sounds of the city seemed to quiet her racing thoughts. She thought about her mother, who had passed away several years ago. Her mother had always taught her to help others, no matter what. But her mother had also warned her about relying on others too much. "You can't save the world on your own, Emily," her mother had said, "but you can start by helping one person at a time." Emily had always believed in that, but now, standing at this crossroads, she wasn't so sure. Could she accept David's help without feeling like she was failing? As she walked past the park, she saw a homeless woman sitting on the bench, wrapped in a tattered blanket. Emily hesitated for a moment, then approached the woman, offering her a few dollars. The woman smiled up at her, and for a brief moment, their eyes met, and Emily felt a connection. It was the same feeling she had when she first met David, someone who was in need, and someone who was willing to offer help without asking for anything in return. The encounter left her with a renewed sense of purpose. Maybe accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a chance to do more, to reach more people. That night, as she lay in bed, Emily finally made up her mind. She would accept David's offer, but on her terms. She would work hard, prove that she deserved the opportunity, and make a difference. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. The next morning, she texted David, "I've thought about it, and I'm ready to take the next step. I'd like to work with your foundation." She hit send, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. Within moments, David replied, "That's amazing, Emily. I knew you were the right person for the job. Let's meet tomorrow and talk about the details." Emily smiled as she put her phone down. She didn't know where this new path would lead her, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was moving in the right direction. She was no longer just a nurse struggling to make ends meet. She was about to become part of something bigger, something that could change her life and the lives of others. The journey was just beginning. The next day, Emily met David at a small cafe just outside the city. The moment she walked through the door, she spotted him sitting at a corner table, his posture relaxed, but there was an intensity in his eyes that she hadn't noticed before. He was looking at her with a kind of expectation, as if he were silently encouraging her to take the plunge. Emily took a deep breath and walked over to him. "Hey, David," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm glad we could meet." David stood up as she approached and gave her a warm smile, his gaze never wavering. "I'm happy you decided to come. I know this is a big step for you." They both sat down, and the conversation began in a comfortable rhythm, as if they had known each other for much longer than just a few weeks. They talked about the foundation, about its mission, and about the kind of work Emily would be doing. It was clear from the start that David wasn't just offering her a job, he was offering her a chance to make a real impact. Emily had always wanted to do more, but she had never imagined this opportunity would come to her, let alone from someone like David. The hours passed by quickly as they discussed logistics, and Emily found herself growing more and more excited about what lay ahead. By the time the meeting ended, she felt a sense of purpose that had been missing for a long time. David was everything she had imagined and more intelligent, driven, but also incredibly down-to-earth. As they said their goodbyes, David offered a final piece of advice. "You don't have to be perfect, Emily. Just be true to yourself. The people you'll help will appreciate that more than anything else." Emily nodded, feeling a surge of confidence that had been building inside her all morning. She was ready. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emily started her work with the foundation, and it didn't take long for her to realize that this was her calling. She was helping to create programs that provided medical care and support to underprivileged communities, and every day she felt more connected to the work she was doing. Despite the demanding hours, she felt alive in a way she hadn't before. But even as she found herself immersed in her new role, she couldn't help but wonder about David. He had become a constant presence in her life, both professionally and personally. They would often meet to discuss the progress of the foundation, and during their meetings, Emily found herself drawn to him in a way that went beyond the professional. David was kind, compassionate, and incredibly easy to talk to. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. But Emily couldn't ignore the fact that he was a millionaire, a single father, and a man with a complicated life. She wasn't sure if she was ready to open herself up to someone like him, especially after everything she had been through. The next time they met, Emily could feel the tension between them. It was palpable, like the air before a storm. She had been avoiding it, but the truth was, she couldn't ignore the way she felt anymore. She had to know where they stood. "David," she said, her voice calm but with a hint of uncertainty. "I don't want to complicate things, but I need to ask you something. What are we doing here? What is this between us?" David looked at her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. He didn't answer right away, and the silence between them was thick with unspoken words. Finally he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Emily, I'm not sure I can explain it. I've never been in a situation like this before, but I know this much: I care about you. I don't know what that means yet, but I don't want to run from it either." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had heard the words, but it took a moment for them to truly sink in. She didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. But at that moment, she realized that she wasn't as afraid of the unknown as she had been before. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she was ready to take a leap of faith, no matter where it would lead. "I don't want to run either," she said quietly, her voice steady now. David smiled, the warmth in his eyes telling her everything she needed to know. This was just the beginning, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The weeks that followed were filled with both excitement and uncertainty for Emily. As she became more involved with David's foundation, she began to feel the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. There was so much to be done, and each day brought new challenges. But there was also a growing sense of fulfillment, something she hadn't experienced in years. The work was meaningful, and she could see the tangible impact they were making in the community. Despite her growing connection with David, she tried to keep her focus on the mission at hand. She knew that their professional relationship was important, and she didn't want to risk complicating it with personal feelings. Yet, every time she saw David, she felt that magnetic pull between them. He was patient, understanding, and more than anything, kind. David had been there for her, both as a mentor and as a friend. There were moments when she saw a vulnerability in him, little glimpses of the man he was when he wasn't wearing the mask of a wealthy businessman. She saw the father who cared deeply for his daughter, the man who still carried the weight of his past. And in those moments, she found herself caring for him more than she ever expected. It was the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. One afternoon, as they were wrapping up a meeting at the foundation's headquarters, David invited Emily to join him for a walk around the nearby park. They had a few minutes before their next appointment, and David wanted to get some fresh air. As they strolled through the park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot, David turned to Emily with a serious look in his eyes. "There's something I need to tell you, Emily," he said, his voice lower than usual. Emily looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. David paused for a moment, collecting his thoughts. "I don't want to hide anything from you," he began. "The truth is, I'm not just offering you a job or a chance to help others. I've been thinking a lot about you, about us, and I'm starting to realize that I want more than just a professional relationship. I care about you, Emily, a lot." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had been expecting something like this, but hearing the words aloud made her heart skip a beat. She had felt it too, the growing connection between them, the way he made her feel seen and understood. But she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge it, afraid that it would complicate everything. "David, Emily started, but she didn't know what to say. Her mind was racing. "I know this is a lot, and I don't expect you to feel the same way right away," David continued. "But I needed to tell you how I feel. I respect you so much, and I want to be honest with you. I don't want to lose what we have, whether it's personal or professional." Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. She had been so focused on her career and the work at the foundation that she hadn't stopped to consider what she wanted in her personal life. But as she looked at David, she realized that maybe this was exactly what she needed. She had spent so long building walls around herself, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of getting hurt. But David wasn't like the men she had known in the past. He was genuine, kind, and patient. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she could let go of her fears and embrace the possibility of something more. "David, I care about you too," Emily said, her voice steady now. "I've been afraid to admit it, but I do. I didn't want to complicate things, but I don't want to run from this anymore." David's face softened, and he reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'm glad to hear that," he said quietly. "We'll take it slow, okay? No pressure. I just want us to figure this out together, whatever it looks like." Emily nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time, in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. They continued walking through the park, the autumn sun setting behind them, and Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face it with someone by her side. The next chapter of their journey together was just beginning, and Emily couldn't wait to see where it would lead. As the days passed, Emily and David's connection deepened. They spent more time together, both professionally and personally, as they worked side by side at the foundation. Emily could feel herself falling for him, but she was still cautious. She had been hurt before, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to let her guard down completely. David, on the other hand, was patient. He never pushed her for more than she was ready to give, and his support was unwavering. He respected her independence, but it was clear to him that they had something special. He was beginning to realize that he couldn't imagine his life without her in it. One evening, after a long day of meetings and site visits for the foundation, David invited Emily to dinner. They went to a cozy little restaurant in the heart of the city, a place David had been to many times, but he'd never shared it with anyone. It was one of those places that felt warm and intimate, with soft lighting and the sound of clinking silverware filling the air. As they sat across from each other at the table, David smiled at Emily. "I've been thinking about something," he said, his voice gentle but serious. Emily raised an eyebrow. "What's on your mind?" "I know we've been taking things slow, but I want you to know that I'm serious about this. About us," David said. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had known deep down that he felt the same way, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel more real. "I care about you a lot, Emily," he continued, "and I want to make sure you know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Emily felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had never felt so understood, so accepted. "I care about you too, David," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than I ever thought I would." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Emily was still processing everything that had been said, but one thing was clear to her now: she was ready to take the next step with David. She had been afraid of losing herself in the relationship, but now she realized that she didn't have to. She could be herself with him and still have space to grow. Just as she was about to speak, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the foundation's director, asking if she could come in the next morning for an important meeting. Emily sighed, glancing at David. "It looks like work calls," she said, feeling a little disappointed. "I'll have to get going soon." David nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it, you're busy, and your work is important. But before you go, I want you to know that I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. I can see how much you care about this work, and I admire you for it." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She hadn't expected that kind of acknowledgement, but it meant a lot to her. "Thank you, David," she said. "That really means a lot to me." As the evening wore on, they finished their dinner, and David walked Emily to her car. It was a crisp autumn night, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. Emily turned to him as she reached her car, her heart full. "I'm glad we had this time together," she said. "Me too," David replied, his eyes soft with affection. "I'll be thinking about you." With that, they shared a lingering kiss, the kind that made Emily feel like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The kiss was sweet, filled with promise and hope for the future. As she drove home that night, Emily couldn't help but smile to herself. It had been a long time since she had felt this way about someone. David had shown her a side of herself that she had long buried: someone who could love and be loved, someone who was worthy of happiness. She didn't know where this journey with him would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to take it. The next morning, as Emily entered the meeting at the foundation, she felt a new sense of confidence. She wasn't just there as an employee. She was there as someone who had a future, someone who was loved and cared for. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: she was no longer afraid to embrace it. The following week, Emily found herself at a crossroads. She had embraced her new role at the foundation, and her professional life was thriving. However, as her relationship with David deepened, the line between personal and professional began to blur. Despite their growing closeness, Emily was still unsure of what the future held for them. David had been incredibly patient, never pushing her for more than she was ready to give. But as they spent more time together, the connection between them grew stronger. She had always been hesitant to open herself up fully to someone, but with David, it felt different. He had proven to her that he wasn't just offering her a job, but a future. As she sat in her office one afternoon, Emily received an unexpected phone call. It was from her sister, Sarah, who lived across the country. I need to talk to you about something," Sarah said, her voice tinged with urgency. "What's going on?" Emily asked, immediately concerned. "It's about Dad. He's been diagnosed with cancer," Sarah replied. The news hit Emily like a ton of bricks. Her father had always been a strong, independent man, and the thought of him being so vulnerable was a shock. I don't know what to say," Emily whispered, her heart racing. "You don't have to say anything," Sarah replied softly. "I just wanted you to know. We're trying to figure things out, but I thought you should hear it from me first." Emily felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had always been the strong one in the family, the one who held things together. But this news was different. It left her feeling helpless. After she hung up the phone, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over her. She had to be there for her family, but at the same time, she didn't want to leave the work she had started with David. The foundation was a part of her now, and it felt like she was finally making a difference in the world. But her father needed her. She didn't know how to balance both. That evening, she met David for dinner at their usual spot. The conversation was light, but Emily's mind kept drifting to her father's diagnosis. She felt guilty for not being able to focus on the present, but she couldn't ignore the heavy burden weighing on her heart. David noticed the change in her demeanor immediately. "Emily, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice soft but concerned. Emily took a deep breath, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill. "It's my dad. He's been diagnosed with cancer. I'm not sure what to do. I need to go home, but I don't want to leave everything behind here," she said, her voice breaking. David reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to choose, Emily," he said gently. "I'm here for you, no matter what. If you need to go home, I'll support you. And when you're ready, we'll pick up where we left off. The foundation can wait. Family comes first." Emily looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. She hadn't expected such understanding, but it made her realize just how lucky she was to have David in her life. "Thank you, David. I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered. Over the next few days, Emily made the decision to return home to be with her family. It was hard to leave the foundation and the work she had grown so passionate about, but her family needed her. David's word "stayed with her family" comes first. She knew that when she was ready to return, he would be there waiting for her, just as he always had. The time away gave Emily the space to process everything. She spent her days at her father's side, offering comfort and support. It wasn't easy seeing him so frail, but she was determined to be there for him, just as he had always been there for her. During this time, Emily also reflected on her relationship with David. Their bond had grown stronger, and she realized that she couldn't imagine her life without him in it. When she returned to the city, she knew that things would be different. She would balance her work with the foundation and her personal life with David. It wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. As she walked into the foundation's office for the first time in a week, she felt a sense of relief. The work was still here, waiting for her, but she knew now that she could handle it all. David was waiting for her in his office. a smile spreading across his face when he saw her. "Welcome back, Emily," he said, his voice full of warmth. Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. "It's good to be back," she replied, walking toward him. "I've learned that family is important, but so is this, and I'm ready to give both the attention they deserve." David nodded, his eyes filled with admiration. "I knew you would," he said softly. "We'll take this one step at a time, together." Emily felt a new sense of purpose as she walked back into the office after her time with her family. The moment she stepped through the door, the familiar hum of the foundation filled her ears, and the weight that had settled on her shoulders during her absence began to lift. She had returned not just as an employee, but as a woman who had learned the importance of balance, of making space for both her personal life and her professional aspirations. She was ready to give everything she had to the cause, knowing that David, the man she had come to care so deeply about, would be there to support her. The foundation had become her second home, and the work they were doing was more than just a job. It was a calling. The first meeting she attended upon her return was one of the foundation's regular check-ins. As she sat down with her colleagues, her mind was still processing everything from the past few days: her father's health, the time she had spent with him, and the renewed sense of clarity she had about her future. But as the meeting began, she found herself fully engaged, her mind focused on the task at hand. She shared her thoughts, offered suggestions, and worked collaboratively with the team, all while knowing that her personal life and her work life were finally starting to coexist in a way that felt right. It was then that David entered the room, his presence commanding but comforting. He had been away for a few days himself, handling some important business matters, but now he was back, and Emily could feel his gaze linger on her for just a moment longer than usual. Their eyes met across the room, and Emily smiled softly, her heart skipping a beat. The connection between them had deepened, and she was starting to realize that the bond they shared was more than just a professional one. After the meeting, David pulled her aside. "How are you doing?" he asked, his tone gentle but sincere. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his question. "I'm better," she said, offering him a smile. "It was hard being away, but I needed that time. Now, I'm ready to move forward." David nodded, his expression softening. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he said, his voice full of admiration. "You've been handling everything with such grace, and I'm here for you, every step of the way." Emily felt a surge of warmth at his words. It was more than just support. It was the affirmation she had needed to hear. She had been juggling so much, trying to balance the needs of her family, her new role, and her growing feelings for David. But in that moment, she realized that she didn't have to do it alone. "Thank you, David," she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. "I don't think I could do this without you." Over the next few weeks, things began to fall into place for Emily. She continued to work closely with David, contributing her ideas to the foundation's initiatives, while also learning more about the inner workings of the organization. She had a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the work they were doing was making a real difference. At the same time, her relationship with David grew stronger. They spent more time together outside of work, enjoying quiet evenings, sharing meals, and having long conversations about their dreams and their future. The more they talked, the more Emily realized that David was everything she had been looking for. He was kind, compassionate, and genuine. But it wasn't just his character that drew her in, it was the way he made her feel. He made her believe in herself again, in a way she hadn't in years. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, David surprised Emily by taking her to a beautiful rooftop restaurant with a stunning view of the city skyline. As they sat down at the table, the soft glow of the city lights flickered around them. David looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking about us, about everything we've been through together, and I want you to know that I'm all in. I care about you, deeply, and I want to build a future with you." Emily's heart raced as she listened to his words. She had known all along that their connection was special, but hearing him speak so openly about it made everything feel real. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she felt completely at peace. "I feel the same way," Emily said softly, her voice full of emotion. "I've never felt this way before, David. I want to be with you, and I want to see where this goes." David reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The moment was simple, yet profound, and Emily knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. They had both come a long way, and while they didn't know what the future would hold, they were ready to face it together. As they left the restaurant that night, their hands intertwined, Emily couldn't help but smile. She had found not just a partner in David, but a friend, a supporter, and someone who made her feel whole. She was ready to embrace the future, knowing that whatever challenges came their way, they would face them side by side. As the weeks continued, Emily and David settled into a comfortable routine. They balanced their professional lives at the foundation with their growing personal connection, finding joy in the small moments they shared together. Emily felt more fulfilled than she ever had before, and David, always by her side, became a steady source of support and encouragement. However, just when everything seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected challenge arose. Emily received a call one morning from her mother, who had been handling her father's medical care. "Emily, I need to talk to you," her mother said, her voice filled with concern. "Your father's condition has worsened. The doctors say he doesn't have much time left." The news hit Emily hard. She had known her father's health was declining, but hearing that time was running out made everything feel so much more real. It was as if the weight of the world had suddenly settled on her shoulders. She tried to stay composed, but her heart ached with the thought of losing him. After ending the call, Emily stood in silence for a moment, the realization sinking in. She knew what she had to do. She needed to go back home and be with her family. The thought of leaving David and the foundation behind filled her with guilt, but family had to come first. She made a decision, packed her things, and headed for the airport. David knew something was wrong when he received a text from Emily saying she had to leave unexpectedly. Without hesitation, he called her. "Emily, what's going on?" His voice was filled with concern. Emily took a deep breath. "It's my dad. His condition has gotten worse, and I need to go home. I don't know how long I'll be gone." David listened quietly, giving her the space to speak without interrupting. "I understand," he said softly. "You need to be with your family. Don't worry about anything here. Take all the time you need." Emily felt a rush of relief at his words. She had expected him to question her decision, to ask her to stay, but he didn't. He just wanted her to do what was best for her. "Thank you, David," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You're not alone, Emily," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'll be here when you're ready to come back." The flight back to her hometown felt like the longest journey of Emily's life. Her mind kept racing, imagining all the things she wished she could say to her father, all the moments they had yet to share. When she arrived, her mother was waiting for her at the airport. They hugged tightly, both of them silently acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Emily spent the next few days by her father's side, doing everything she could to make him comfortable. The once strong man who had always been her rock was now frail and weak, and seeing him like that was almost too much to bear. But despite the pain, Emily stayed strong, determined to be there for him in his final days. She often found herself reflecting on her own life during this time. She realized that, while she had always been focused on her career and helping others, she had neglected to fully embrace her own happiness. The love and support she had found with David had opened her eyes to the importance of being present in the moment, of cherishing the people you loved. As the days passed, Emily's father began to fade. She was there when he took his last breath, holding his hand and whispering words of comfort. It was a heartbreaking moment, but Emily found peace in knowing that she had been there for him when he needed her most. After the funeral, Emily returned to the city, but she wasn't the same person who had left. The loss of her father had changed her, and it made her appreciate the importance of family and love in a way she never had before. When she arrived back at the foundation, David was there waiting for her. He stood at the door, looking at her with a mixture of concern and relief. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Emily closed her eyes, feeling the comfort of his embrace. "I'm here, Emily," he whispered. "You don't have to go through this alone." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she realized how lucky she was to have him in her life. She had been through so much, but David's unwavering support had given her the strength to keep going. "Thank you, David," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how I would have made it through this without you." "You don't have to thank me," he replied, his voice warm and steady. "I'm just glad you're home." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She had lost a part of herself, but in that moment, she knew she was ready to move forward. With David by her side, she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they had built something special, something worth fighting for. And no matter what the future held, they would face it together. After Emily returned to the foundation, she found herself back in the swing of things, but something had shifted inside her. The loss of her father had left a void, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important in her life. The work at the foundation was fulfilling, but her personal life was still in limbo. David had been her rock through everything, but now she found herself questioning where they stood. She had been so focused on supporting him and the foundation that she had forgotten to ask herself what she really wanted for her future. It wasn't until one quiet evening, a few weeks after her return, that Emily found herself alone with her thoughts, walking through the park near her apartment. The crisp fall air filled her lungs as she walked, her mind wandering to the future. She loved David, there was no doubt about it. But was she ready for what came next? Was she ready to fully open her heart and embrace a future with him? The thought made her anxious. She had always been independent, always kept a part of herself closed off to protect her heart. But David made her feel safe in a way she never thought possible. She knew that she needed to confront her fears and take the next step. As if on cue, her phone rang. It was David. "Hey, Emily," he said, his voice light, but with an underlying tone of concern. "I've been thinking a lot about everything lately, and I was hoping we could talk." Emily felt her stomach flip. "Of course," she replied, her voice steady but her mind racing. They arranged to meet at a small cafe, a place they often went when they needed time to talk. When Emily arrived, David was already there, sitting at a table by the window, his eyes scanning the streets outside. As soon as he saw her, he stood up, a warm smile spreading across his face. They sat down, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Emily could sense the weight of the conversation that was about to take place. "I've been thinking about us," David began, his tone serious but kind, "about what we've built together. And I just want you to know that I'm in this, Emily. I'm all in. But I also want you to know that I'm not in a rush. I just want us to move forward at our own pace, no pressure." Emily's heart swelled at his words. She had feared that he would push for more, for something she wasn't ready for. But instead, he was offering her the space to take her time. "I feel the same way," she said softly, her voice filled with sincerity. "I'm just not sure how to move forward. I've always been so focused on my career and helping others that I forgot to focus on what I want. But now, with everything that's happened, I realize that I don't want to keep running from what we have." David's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "We don't have to have everything figured out right now," he said gently. "We just need to take things one step at a time. We've both been through a lot, and I'm willing to be patient with you. I want to build something real with you, Emily. Something lasting." Emily felt a surge of emotion as she listened to him. He had always been there for her, supporting her through everything. And now, he was offering her the one thing she had always been afraid to ask for: commitment. She had been so focused on her fears, on the possibility of losing herself in a relationship, but David was showing her that she didn't have to lose who she was. She could be with him and still be herself. "I want that too, David," Emily said, her voice steady now, filled with resolve. "I'm ready to take the next step, with you." The moment hung in the air, and for the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. They didn't need to have all the answers. They just needed to be together, to support each other through whatever came next. As they left the cafe that evening, hand in hand, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had spent so much time questioning what she wanted, but now she knew. She was ready to embrace the future, whatever it held, with David by her side. As the months passed, Emily and David grew even closer, both in their professional work at the foundation and their personal lives. They had started to build something truly special, and every moment they shared reinforced the strength of their connection. Emily had found herself not just thriving in her career, but also learning to embrace the love and support David was offering her. But despite the progress they had made, the outside world was starting to pull at the seams of their carefully crafted life. The foundation's efforts were gaining attention, and soon, there were new challenges that tested their resolve. David, always the visionary, was pushing for expansion. They were planning a new initiative that would provide healthcare to underserved communities across the country. It was a project that would require significant funding and resources, and David was determined to make it happen. Emily, now deeply involved in the planning, was excited about the impact this project could have, but she also felt the pressure mounting. It was a massive undertaking, and the weight of it seemed to rest squarely on her shoulders. Meanwhile, David's life was becoming more complicated. His ex-wife, the mother of his daughter, had been in and out of the picture, and now she was requesting more involvement in their daughter's life. David had always tried to maintain a cordial relationship with her for the sake of their daughter, but things were becoming more difficult. Emily could see the toll it was taking on him. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Emily sat down with David in the quiet of his office. The soft glow of the desk lamp cast shadows on his face, and she could see the lines of stress deepening in his features. "David, you look exhausted," she said, her voice filled with concern. "I'm fine," he replied, but Emily knew him well enough to see through the facade. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "What's going on? You've been working non-stop, and your ex, I can see it's affecting you." David exhaled, his shoulders slumping as he leaned back in his chair. "It's just a lot, Emily. There's the foundation, the project we're launching, and now I have to figure out how to balance everything with my daughter. I don't want to let her down. I've been trying to do everything on my own, but it's getting harder." Emily squeezed his hand, her heart aching for him. She understood the pressure he was under, but she also knew that he didn't have to face everything alone. "David, you don't have to carry it all by yourself," she said softly. "We're in this together. I'm here for you, no matter what. Let me help." David looked at her, his expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "You'll never have to find out," she replied. In the following days, Emily took on a more prominent role in managing the Foundation's new initiative. She worked closely with the team, coordinating logistics, securing funding, and overseeing the planning process. David, although still deeply involved, trusted her more than ever to carry the weight of the project. They began to find a better balance in their personal lives as well. Despite the challenges they faced, they made time for each other, quiet dinners, walks in the park, and long talks about their hopes for the future. One weekend, after a particularly grueling week, David surprised Emily with a getaway to a small cabin in the mountains. It was the kind of place that felt miles away from the world, a peaceful retreat surrounded by nature. They spent the weekend hiking, cooking meals together, and simply enjoying each other's company. For the first time in months, Emily felt completely at ease. It was as though the weight of everything, the foundation, the pressures, the complexities of their lives had melted away. As they sat on the porch of the cabin that evening, watching the sun set behind the mountains, David turned to her. "Emily, I know we've been through a lot, and I know there are still challenges ahead, but I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, with you, for the long haul." Emily's heart swelled at his words. She had been afraid to fully commit, to let herself completely trust that everything they had could last. But in that moment, surrounded by the quiet of the mountains, she realized that she had found something worth fighting for. "I'm here too, David," she said softly, her voice full of conviction. "For as long as you'll have me." The peace of the mountains, the warmth of their shared connection, and the promise of their future together wrapped around Emily like a blanket. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but with David by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. She wasn't alone anymore. Together, they were unstoppable. As the weeks passed, Emily and David found themselves facing a new set of challenges, but they had grown stronger together, and their bond had become unshakable. The Foundation's new project was well underway, with Emily taking on more leadership responsibilities, and David overseeing its progress with a steady hand. Despite the overwhelming pressure they were both under, they had learned to lean on each other for support, and the love they shared had only deepened. However, the balance they had worked so hard to create was about to be tested in ways they hadn't expected. One afternoon, as Emily was wrapping up a meeting at the Foundation, she received an urgent call from David. "Emily, I need to talk to you. It's about my daughter," he said, his voice strained. Emily's heart sank. She had always known that David's relationship with his ex-wife, and the custody of his daughter, had been a delicate matter, but she had never expected it to cause him so much distress. "What happened?" Emily asked, her voice filled with concern. David took a deep breath before speaking. "My ex is asking for more time with Mia. She wants to change the custody arrangement, and it's really throwing me off. I don't want to make any decisions without talking to you first." Emily felt a pang of worry. She knew how important Mia was to David, and she could sense the internal struggle he was going through. "Of course, David. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. But you need to do what feels right for Mia." David paused for a moment, clearly torn. "I just don't know what the right thing to do is. I don't want to upset Mia, but I don't want to give in to her mother's demands either." Emily's heart ached for him. She understood the complexity of his situation and the weight of the decision he was facing. "Let's talk about it when I get home. We'll figure it out together," she said softly. When Emily arrived at David's apartment later that evening, the air was thick with unspoken tension. David was pacing the living room, his mind clearly racing with thoughts. Emily approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder to ground him. "David, you don't have to go through this alone," she said gently. "We'll figure this out together. You and Mia deserve to have the best arrangement, and I know you'll make the right choice." David turned to face her, his eyes full of gratitude and uncertainty. "I don't want Mia to feel torn between her parents, Emily. I want what's best for her, but I also want her to know that I'm here for her, no matter what." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with admiration for the man she had come to love. "You're a great father, David. Mia knows that, and I'm sure whatever you choose, she'll understand. You just have to be honest with her." Over the next few days, David spent hours thinking about the situation, weighing the pros and cons, and considering the impact of his decision on Mia's happiness. He knew that he had to approach the conversation with Mia carefully, but he also knew that he couldn't avoid it any longer. Finally, one afternoon, he sat down with Mia, who was just returning from school. He could see the uncertainty in her eyes, and he knew that she could sense the tension in the air. "Mia, can we talk for a minute?" David asked gently. Mia nodded, sitting down next to him on the couch. David took a deep breath before speaking. "I know things have been a little complicated lately, and I want you to know that I'm always going to be here for you. I love you more than anything, and nothing will ever change that." Mia looked up at him, her eyes wide and a little worried. "What's going on, Dad? Are you and Mom going to fight again?" David felt his heart break at the fear in her voice. He gently took her hand in his. "No, sweetheart. Your mom and I are always going to love you, and we're going to make sure you're okay, no matter what. We just need to figure out how we can both spend time with you in a way that makes you feel happy and safe." Mia's face softened, and she nodded. "I want to spend time with both of you, Dad. I just don't want things to be all weird." David smiled, pulling her into a hug. "I promise, Mia, we're going to make it work, and I'll always be here for you no matter what." Over the next few weeks, David and his ex-wife reached an agreement about the custody arrangement that allowed for both of them to spend more time with Mia without causing any additional stress. David felt a weight lift off his shoulders, knowing that he had made the best decision for his daughter. As the situation with Mia settled, Emily was there for David every step of the way. She had always known that being a parent wasn't easy, but she now had a deeper understanding of the sacrifices and challenges that came with it. The bond between her and David had only grown stronger through the experience, and she felt more certain than ever that they were on the right path together. As they sat on the balcony one evening, looking out at the city skyline, David turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression on his face. "Emily, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. You've been there for me through everything, and I couldn't have made it through this without you. I want you to be a part of my life, always." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words. "I'm here for you, David, and I always will be," she replied softly. As they sat together, the future seemed bright, and Emily knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. As time passed, Emily and David found themselves in a place of peace and stability. The challenges they had faced, both personally and professionally, had strengthened their bond. Their love for each other had grown, as had their mutual respect. They had not only built a strong partnership, but they had also learned how to balance their ambitions with the needs of their relationship. The Foundation's new initiative was a success, and Emily's contributions had been integral in making it a reality. The project was helping underserved communities across the country, providing medical care, and offering resources that were desperately needed. David couldn't be prouder of the work they had accomplished together. But it wasn't just the success of the foundation that brought them joy, it was the quiet moments they shared. The small, everyday moments that made their connection feel real. Whether it was cooking dinner together, taking long walks through the city, or sitting side by side on the couch, they had found something rare and beautiful in each other. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of David's apartment, watching the sunset, Emily felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in years. The past had shaped her, but she no longer felt like it was holding her back. She had found her place in the world, and it was with David. She looked over at him, smiling softly. "You know," she said, her voice light, "I never imagined that this is where I would be." David turned to her, his expression warm. "Neither did I," he said, reaching for her hand. "But I'm glad we're here." Emily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "I used to think that I had to have everything figured out, that I needed to be in control of every part of my life. But with you, I've realized that it's okay to let go, to trust that things will fall into place." David smiled, his eyes filled with affection. "I'm glad you trust me, Emily, because I'm not going anywhere." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. Emily thought about everything they had been through, the highs and the lows, and realized that, together, they had built something worth fighting for. They had learned to face life's challenges side by side, and in doing so, had created a future that was theirs to shape. As the days turned into months, Emily and David continued to grow, both individually and as a couple. They remained dedicated to their work at the foundation, but they also made time for the things that mattered most to each other. They had found a rhythm, a balance between their personal lives and their shared goals. One afternoon, David took Emily to a small park near the office. It was quiet, the kind of place where they could be alone without distraction. They sat on a bench, enjoying the peaceful surroundings. David turned to Emily, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone thoughtful. "We've both come so far, and I want to take the next step. I want to make this official, Emily. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emily's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her mind racing with excitement. She had never imagined this moment would come, but now that it had, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "David," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I feel the same way." David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. He opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring, one that sparkled in the sunlight. "Emily, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with emotion. Emily looked at him, her eyes welling with tears. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "Yes, I will marry you." David slipped the ring onto her finger, and in that moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, standing at the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The days ahead would surely bring challenges, but Emily knew that with David by her side, she was ready to face whatever came their way. Together, they would build a life filled with love, purpose, and the promise of a future they would create together. As they walked hand in hand through the park, Emily couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of joy. She had found love in the most unexpected place, and it was a love that had brought her home. She was no longer afraid of the future. With David, everything felt possible. And she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, side by side. In this captivating tale, we explore the powerful journey of love, ambition, and self-discovery through the lens of Millionaire stories. Emily, a hardworking woman balancing her career at a charity foundation with a personal life that's slowly intertwining with David, a successful millionaire, faces the highs and lows that come with love, sacrifice, and professional challenges. The story unfolds as Emily navigates the complexities of her relationship with David, while also dealing with the unexpected illness of her father. Through the trials, they learn what it means to be there for one another, revealing that true wealth isn't just measured in dollars, but in love and support. As their relationship evolves, so does Emily's understanding of what it means to truly live for herself, not just for her career. As the plot deepens, the millionaire stories within this narrative are shaped by Emily's growing relationship with David, and together they face the challenges of combining professional success with personal happiness. Their journey culminates in a heartfelt moment where they commit to building a future together. The beauty of this millionaire stories unfolds as both characters find balance, facing the trials of family, love, and ambition. In the end, Emily and David demonstrate that the truest form of success comes when you build a life not just for yourself, but with someone who truly understands and supports you. This tale of growth, compassion, and love resonates deeply, offering a perfect reflection of the themes found in classic millionaire stories of heart, resilience, and commitment. Follow Emily and David as they navigate the highs and lows of life, love, and millionaire success, proving that the richest relationships are built on trust, understanding, and a willingness to face the future together.